Good evening, everybody. It is March 18th, 2021. I will start this evening, like we usually do, reading our vision statement. The Ashland Public Schools cultivates the academic and social-emotional growth of each student through a supportive, collaborative, innovative, and challenging environment. Students will develop into self-motivated, resilient, lifelong learners who embrace their role as responsible contributors to a global community. This meeting is being recorded by WACA Cable TV, and our order of business this evening includes the open session call to order, opening procedures, agenda review and adoption, recognitions and student presentations if we have any. We'll have some time for public comment, and the administrative items include the superintendent's update, COVID-19, approval of full in-person learning at AMS and AHS, 2020 school calendar adjustments, reopening, remote students participating in athletics, student activities bank reconciliations from October through December 2020, MCAS bill, calendar of recognized holidays, assistant superintendent update, warrant approvals. Consent actions include the approval of minutes for February 18th, 2021, February 26th, 2021, March 4th, 2021, acceptance of gifts, committee reports of activities, member updates, action items, and then we will adjourn. So I will take the roll call and also ask you again to confirm that you're okay with this order of business this evening. I'll start with you, Mark Terry.
Present and yes.
Kathy Bates.
Present and yes.
Paul Kendall.
Here and yes, and I did text Erin, she is coming.
Excellent. But not here yet?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, so we will get started. Jim, are there any recognitions or student presentations this evening?
No, just
Okay.
the conversation about the holidays. That's Neerman. We'll have that later.
Okay, and there might be some people that would like to offer public comment this evening. We do want to hear what you have to say. We are here to listen and not engage, but we are interested in your opinion. And we ask that you keep your comments to under 3 minutes. So Mr. DeSoni, you asked first. So I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself, please, and fill us in on what you want us to know.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Good evening to all. And oh, sure, the phone would ring now. I'd like to give a compliments to the school committee chairman, Mr. Adams, and Ed Burns, all involved with the information coming out through COVID, and especially to Mr. Adams with his updates. He shows his charts and everything. I like to say it's great information. I've been watching the replays of the school committee meetings and got to be glued to understand what's going on. And through the school committee, through the charts, through Mr. Adams and Ed Burns. I already talked to him a couple of times. He knows where I'm coming from. So I'm thinking all three through the school committee side of things, and saying the education is great to have. And the last thing is, I want to know if the teachers and educators got vaccinated, or are they going to get started? Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Anybody else who would like to give comment? If you can, let me see, I'm going to get my screen to where I can see everybody. So I don't know if there are hands up, but you can also unmute yourself and let me know that you're interested in sharing.
There are no virtual hands up.
There are no virtual hands up. Now's the time, folks.
Nope, there is one now.
Okay.
Marcelo.
Oh, sorry, it's Melanie, actually. I haven't
It's
changed
Melanie. I was looking for you, Melanie. Okay, but I can't see you yet, so I know you're here. I just want to find you so I can see you, and you will be next.
Okay.
Are you, can we see you, or are you?
I'm sure I can start the video, sure. Oh, yeah.
Okay,
can you tell I don't use Zoom that much?
Hi, Melanie. Please feel free to share with us what you'd like us to know.
No, I'm very excited to see and the prospects of the kids going back full time. my only concern about the kids being in full in person, it was the statement saying, you know, the no online, no live streaming. So, and I understand that it's a huge distraction, but if there was a way for, you know, important lessons for kids, you know, especially math, science, things like that, if they could at least like turn the camera on so the kids at home, they don't have to be involved in the conversation, but at least could watch, because, you know, 10 days out of school is a really long time. And I feel like kids could really get behind, and it would be really, ooh, sorry, just got a text. I just want to make sure it wasn't anything important, but I just really want to make sure that, like, just speaking from experience, you know, having had COVID, my kids were home. It's a stressful time, like for the whole house. And if you add on that you're not like able to get the lesson to the person who either has COVID or everybody else who's dealing with it, it's very scary. So it's like a scary time, but it's even scarier if the kids are in the house, like, I don't understand this lesson. I don't know what to do. Like, I really wanted to be logged in, but I can't. So that's my concern.
Thank you, Melanie.
Yep.
Anybody else? Go to my other screen, make sure I'm not missing anybody. Anyone else?
I saw a hand wave, so I think.
I
we
think
have
it's
one.
Mary Ann Barrett wants to.
Yeah.
speak.
Mary Ann.
Hi,
Hi there.
how you doing?
Good, thank you.
Yeah, I just sent you a letter with several concerns, and I was wondering if you were gonna go through them during the meeting.
Well, I usually don't do that. The letter's been forwarded to all the school committee members, so they are aware of your concerns, but you do have 3 minutes if there's something that you would like to say publicly for the audience. But everybody, all the decision makers have seen your letter.
Okay, great. I guess the only things that are on my mind are about the variance and how that could impact the decisions. And also, I feel like if we waited a little longer, we'd be able to have more shots for parents and also give the teachers more time to build up immunity. So those were 2 things kind of bothering me. And I thought that, and also the thing the parent just said just before this about getting left behind and really being stuck if you're on quarantine. And then the final thing was about only 10% of parents agreed to do the
School
testing.
testing.
We signed up because it makes sense to be safe to participate, and that 10% participation, I was wondering why is that, and how's that going to affect what we do? That's it.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Who else?
I saw
Anybody
someone
else?
put their
There
virtual
was
hand up
another
and then
hand.
take it down, but
Somebody else have their hand up? And if you could unmute yourself, that's a little easier for me.
It was Amit something, Amit B.
Okay, let me,
Amit Bola. Here,
Yeah.
Amit,
Yeah.
are you still here?
Yes, I am.
Would you like to share some comment?
Yeah, I had the same thing basically regarding the quarantine, basically 10 days for the kids. So what are the alternative plans? Like, can we come up with some kind of a streaming or some kind of a packaging during the quarantine for the kids, if it happens?
Thank you. Anybody else? One more time. I do believe Mr. Adams will be addressing your concerns when he shares his presentation. So is there anyone who has any concerns that haven't already been raised? Okay, seeing none, thank you for your comments. Jim, I will turn it over to you to
Okay.
share with us the COVID update, please.
Okay, thank you. Let me start a presentation. We'll get to the weekly data in a moment. But what I want to do is begin by can everyone see this okay? Presentation?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Thank you, and hopefully I can answer a lot of the questions that were brought up during public comment, but also, thank you to all those who have reached out with emails questions, attended the webinars, not only at Warren and Mendez, but at the high school and middle school this week. I want to stress that what I'm about to show you only impacts K through 12, as pre-K is not, in this instance, not under the DESE guidance. So unless it's noted else within the presentation, the information relates specifically to K through 12. I think it's important to take a look back. I think where we were a year ago, where we had our first early release on March 12th. I'm not going to go through all the dates, but as you can see, we progressed steadily into a announcement on the 21st of April, where Governor Baker announced we would not be returning in person for the remainder of the school year. Then in the summer, we spent an entire summer focusing on how do we bring students back? What does it look like? What models of learning? We were given 3 options, and I'll get into that in a moment. And then in August, the school committee approved a plan to start in the hybrid model. We started in September. October, we had a temporary halt with some cases within the middle and high school. Then in December, more cases where we temporarily went to remote learning. Back in January, we started back up with hybrid, and we've been in the hybrid model since. In February, again, there was a change at the state level where it was mandated. It was not a choice for the Ashland High School or Ashland Middle School to stream classes to different cohorts. That was not an option. We had to do it in order to meet structured learning time. And it's a key component. As we know, we were not doing that beforehand. The hybrid model did not, some teachers did it because that's what they wanted to do, but it was not a requirement. So last year, what did we focus on during this closure after April? We focused on SEL. We focused on curriculum power standards. We identified certain things that we wanted kids to learn throughout the remainder of the year in that remote setting. The emphasis at the state level was to make sure that we were looking at student and teacher were checking in on a regular basis. We had different delivery methods: Zoom, Google Meets, asynchronous, meaning not live, and synchronous. Then the mandate came for the summer to work on developing a plan. We had to develop 3 plans: a remote plan, so strictly remote for the entire district; a hybrid plan, which included some remote, some in-person learning, strictly cohorting; and then a full in-person, excuse the comma there, a full in-person plan as well. So we've been planning for all of these scenarios since last summer, what it would look like. The state gave us guidelines, 3 feet to 6 feet of distance between students. We settled on 6 feet at the beginning of the year. And since then, there have been studies and literature, and the CDC most likely tomorrow will actually come out and change their guidance to say 3 feet is appropriate based on the research that has been done actually in Massachusetts schools, where 3 feet of learning between children was prevalent in those schools. Mask for students in 2 through 12, we actually upped that mask pre-K through 12. Guidance most recently from the Department of Ed is actually all students now. Mitigation strategies, what types of things were we looking at, such as ventilation, air purifiers, use of fans and circulating air within, having mask breaks, having opportunities for hand sanitizer, daily hygiene, cleaning, things of that nature. Cohorting, so grouping kids together in smaller pockets. So that's how we've done the hybrid model, A through K, L through Z. And then providing services to unique learners and increased instruction to our most vulnerable students. So in Ashland, we were able to pull in a number of students 4 days a week already, instead of the two days a week. So then we looked at it and said, what are our goals? We wanted obviously to create a safe environment for our students, faculty, and staff. Adhere to the science behind community transmission. So that's the weekly reports, right? We're looking weekly at what's happening in Ashland. and how is it impacting schools? Because there might be a breakout in a household with no kids or a complex and there are no students impacted. Should we be looking at changing our model of learning? And we didn't do those things. We looked very local with our information. Creating models that were accessible to all. We had to invest heavily in technology to make sure kids got Chromebooks. Every student has one now, so they can have access to asynchronous as well as synchronous opportunities. Ensuring all members had equitable access. I just mentioned that. Constantly communicating with the community about our plans. We held multiple seminars all through the summer, getting feedback, foreshadowing what we were going to be doing within the school day in the school year. So September came. We started late, as if you can remember. We had 10 days of professional development, focusing on remote instruction and trauma-informed supports. We know that, and we knew then, that students coming back into the buildings, as well as our educators, were going to be anxious. This is a traumatic event for many of us. And as we look forward to opening up our schools on April 5th and April 12th, we know that trauma still exists, and we will continue to work with Jen Cutler and her office and the director of social emotional learning with our teachers and our parents and our students to work through anything, any anxiety, any stress-related incidents that occur because of this coming back in. We settled on the 2 days in, 3 days out. We created a remote learning academy for students who opted out. Obviously, at the elementary level, we had enough students who opted out that we created and used the existing staff to create an actual, what we called a remote learning academy. We didn't have the same flexibility at the high school or the middle school. We had to shuffle some staff around. We have some teachers at the middle school that have upwards of 35 kids in a class right now because of the mixture of some remote and in-person learning. So to say it's been a challenge for them, it would be a gross understatement. Pre-K, however, has been in 4 days since the beginning of the year. We adjusted tuition and we adjusted enrollment due to COVID to ensure smaller class sizes. So, as is typical of the department, as the year goes on, they start pushing mandates down. And in December, the mandate was that all schools had to meet a certain learning requirement of time. And in order to do that, we needed 35 hours of live instruction over a 10 school day period. We were not meeting those requirements at the middle and the high school. Therefore, the only way we could do that was to move to the model of cohort A and the teachers streaming in cohort B model students at the same time. So they were getting some sort of synchronous instruction. I will tell you, it's been a tremendous challenge, not only with technology, but with holding students' attentions at the students who are at home, managing the class itself, trying to incorporate the students who are in the classroom with the students who are at home, trying to make this an active learning environment, which is what we want our teachers to do, has been a tremendous challenge. And to be honest, it's been very, I don't think it's not what I would say is the best model of learning. It really isn't. The teachers are working hard at it, but it's not a model that we would choose. I would never choose for my own child. Then on February 23rd, the commissioner came out and said, oh, by the way, school districts starting on April 5th, grades K through 5 must be in person. So the hybrid model is going away. And then, but he did have one caveat. If families wanted to keep their child remote only for the remainder of the year, just this year in school year 2020, 2021, they could do that. Otherwise, you had to be in person. There's no more mixture. There's no hybrid model that will exist. Then on March 9th, he informed districts that grades 6 through 8 must transition to full in-person learning no later than Wednesday, April 28th, 2021. So that's, he has not provided an actual start date yet where full in-person learning has to be for the high school age students. But as other districts around us, and I've work obviously closely with a number of superintendents in how we're approaching these things, we all believe that the 6 through 12 is where we're headed in terms of opening up schools. So this is where we are. K through 5, full in person, 5 days a week, starting Monday, April 5th, 2021. 6 through 12. I'm recommending that we go full in person 5 days a week, starting Monday, April 12th. This coincides and matches up nicely with the with the end of the term 3, beginning of term 4 on April 12th. Remote options are still going to remain for families as outlined by the Department of Ed. We will still have our remote learning academy in grades K through 5. And we will be using a vendor, which we've been using all year, EduSeer, in grades 6 through 12. And the reason why 6 through 12 needs the vendor is we don't have enough teaching staff in order to accompany and bring all the kids back into the school district and maximize as much as we can physical distancing within the classrooms and providing for the way we set up our blocks, if you will, of learning for the high school and the middle school. They're 90-minute blocks this year. So cohorts were of 15 and 15. So a cohort A and B for, say, a science teacher now is going to have 30 kids come in at the middle school level. So they've got 2 sets of possibly 30 kids, and you can't teach remotely and do that. It's just not inefficient, and it's not effective at all. So the surveys were sent out to all K through 12 families requiring a commitment. And I want to reiterate that the commitment for the high school and the middle school is tomorrow. The end date is tomorrow to commit, so we can get moving with regard to organizing and moving students into classrooms. So for an example, if we have remote students coming back in, which we know we will, we want to, at the middle school, Dave talked last night in the webinar about ensuring some of those families have an opportunity to come in, see the school. 6th grade students have never been in the building. So we want to make sure we give opportunities. So we need to have that, have those commitments and work through it. We're looking at having 2 asynchronous only days for additional planning and preparation for faculty and staff. So currently are those Wednesdays, which is part of the hybrid model. 3 hours has been synchronous, so in-person learning, but we need 2 days, one on the 31st for K through 5, so they can be ready and prepared. So when students come back on April 5th, they're ready to go. And then Wednesday, April 7th would be the asynchronous day for grades 6 through 12 as students come back into the building on Monday, April 12th. That's a lot right now. I'll stop there if you have questions on those previous slides before I move into some other information.
Okay, who wants to go first? I'm opening it up to the committee for questions or comments. I know you have them.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think most of my questions really relate to sort of the implementation.
Yep.
And I think Jim's going to get to that in a bit, so I'll just hold my questions until that time.
Yeah, this is really just about where we have been and where we're headed, not the nuts and bolts of what's to come.
Yeah, I don't think that should be a surprise to any of us.
Right. It shouldn't be. We've been talking about it.
If we had questions, we should already ask them about that stuff, right?
Exactly. Okay.
So is it okay for Jim to move on?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes. Okay,
Yeah,
go ahead,
sounds
Jim.
good.
Yeah. So why now? Right. That's been the question I've received. Oh, let me go back. Why now? Couple reasons. One, we're required to look at full in-person learning, K-5 now. It's starting in a couple weeks. Ms. Bennett Mr. Regan, their staffs, they're excited, they're getting going, they're, you know, they are moved past beyond the, okay, it's real to, okay, now what are we going to do to make sure the kids who are coming into our buildings are, you know, excited about learning in person, are, you know, in a situation where they're learning new routines and going from there. So the middle and the high school, beginning term 4 on Monday, April 12th, 2021. This is really the why now component. And when we're looking at a lot of factors, I want to say I think I'm in a very unique position, not as just a superintendent, but I am also a parent of a middle school special education student, a high school sophomore, who both of them have been in hybrid model learning. My middle schooler, thank goodness, is actually starting full time on April 5th. So they're starting even way earlier than we are at the middle school. My wife happens to be an AP Spanish teacher who has been also teaching in the hybrid model for the since the beginning of the year. So I've got a perspective when I'm at home talking to students as well as an educator and trying to figure out what is the right thing to do. And when Mr. Kyra and I walk around the buildings daily, we're asking these questions of teachers, of administrators, and trying to determine really what is our next move. What's the right time, if you will. Some would say, hey, you don't have to do the high school because it's not mandated yet. Well, maybe not, but I also think it's the right time because we want those high schoolers to get back into the school, get into routines, learn the procedures. There's an opportunity for us to do some community building and to have a sense of normalcy. So when I look at this, why now? That first week, that April 12th week, think of this as a beginning of a new year, right? That's how I would sort of interpret this, is that we're starting a new year. We're having new classes start for the middle and the high school students, right? They're coming, they've had their teachers before, but it's all been in a hybrid setting. These children are coming in. Some are going to be new because they're not all, some were remote students, et cetera. So it allows a week of connecting, creating new norms and procedures, community building, provides classroom teachers and counselors the ability to identify students who are exhibiting anxiety and or difficulties transitioning and providing appropriate support. We recognize that there are going to be students who are coming in who are anxious, who are nervous. There are going to be teachers who are anxious, who are nervous. Happened in the beginning of the year when we were just in the hybrid model. And I just remember those conversations. And Jen, Cutler, we worked on trauma-informed PD at the beginning of the year, recognizing that some of these things were going to occur and they will continue to occur. It also gives us an opportunity as administration to work during that April break. I know my principals aren't happy about that with me, but it gives us an opportunity to look at the things that occurred the week before and to say, okay, we need to tweak this or this really worked well. And we can continue to emphasize that. But it gives us that week to make those modifications before we come back the week after vacation. I know folks are saying, well, everyone's going to travel. There's going to be lots of widespread COVID after the travel. And I don't know if I can only control what I can control to a certain extent. And that is we can control our behaviors within our buildings. And what we do know based on research and science is that we are not spreading COVID. COVID is not spreading in our schools. When people are wearing masks, when people are using hand sanitizers, when you have proper ventilation, it's not happening. And that is important for people to understand. If we just focused on, well, now's not a good time. When is a good time? I'm saying April 12th is as good a time as May 5th. Some folks are saying, let's not go back ever. And that's not, we need to get past that. We need to get to the point where there's a sense of normalcy, because I'm telling you right now, in the fall of 2021, we're all going back in full 100%. That has been loud and clear from the Department of Ed. there's not a choice. That remote option will not exist. It will not count towards structured learning time. And I believe this is an opportunity for us to get in, reduce some of those anxieties and stress. And when we come back in the fall, everyone will know what to expect. I fully believe we'll still be wearing masks in the fall. That's just my gut telling me that, but I think that's a reality we're going to live with for a while. If we started later, like on the 28th, middle of the week, now we go through 5 days and we're talking about making adjustments. We're probably into mid-May before we're now into really focusing again back on academics. And I think by starting the 12th, we've got an opportunity to get in, get settled. And now, you know, the academic component is really going to be ramped up again after the break. But if we wait, I have a feeling that eventually then it's, like I said, it's mid-May and we've got things we have to worry about too, getting kids in. I know it's on the docket for later about MCAS. We've got AP exams. We've got all these things where kids are coming into the building that they have to take these exams. So the more comfortable our kids are, I think the better off we'll be. COVID data indicates there's been no transmission. And while we institute our protocols, as the weather turns nicer in April, even next week, right? We've got our tents up. They were set up over the last couple of days. I don't know if they're at every school, but the couple of schools I've seen them up. Kids are going to be outside more for learning and for lunches. And I think faculty and staff, someone asked that question, how close, we'll be close to 100% fully vaccinated staff by April 12th. That being said, that's if they're desired. I track, but not everyone shares with me if they're going to get a vaccine. It's not required. But, you know, the last time I did a survey, 97% of the staff had said they would be getting the vaccine. And right now, you know, we're upwards, probably close to 70 to 75% of our faculty and staff who either have appointments, who have the first shot, or have both shots. And within that both shot, I include the Johnson & Johnson, which is a one-shotter. And so we're well on our way. And so I feel really comfortable from the adult perspective of those in the buildings having vaccinations. I wanted to emphasize about the no transmission within our schools. Since February 1st, we've had 4 cases at Warren, 12 at Mendez, 6 at the high school, and 10 at Ashland Middle School. These cases are all attributable to a couple things. 1, household transmission. And 2, outside activities, dance and gymnastics. Again, places we don't control, and Sergeant Berman can weigh in on this. Our policies and our procedures and protocols are really strong. That's why we're not seeing transmission in our schools. But we can't control what's happening outside. I will certainly say to the community, once April 12th comes, I believe we have, and I've used this line, 40 days and 40 nights, a little of classes left. I would implore our community to be respectful of the fact that we can do this, but it needs cooperation from our community members. It needs cooperation from parents not hosting parties, not getting together with too many people from the outside who aren't vaccinated. There are many events occurring around us in other towns where it's the outside influence is impacting school being open or school being, cases where kids have to be held out for quarantine. We have not had a case where we've quarantined middle school kids or high school kids, I think, since December. And because we're able to track those kids, we keep them out and they're not coming in. So that close, and I want to emphasize any of the close contacts where we've had students who were in school because of an adult had transmitted it to a kid, and the kid then became positive, and we did tracing, contact tracing that our nursing staff does. Not one of those kids has become positive. That's pretty significant. So with mask wearing, with proper ventilation, they're not transmitting. We've had one case where there was an in-school transmission that happened in September. It was a very unique situation and it was not student to student. And it had to do with an environment that was not conducive to someone wearing a mask. And, that's the only time we had any evidence of an in-school transmission. We are hyper-focused on health and safety mitigation strategies. Again, CDC is recommending minimum of 3 feet is absolutely okay. They've been talking about 6 feet since the beginning. But that being said, they've seen the data and the research, and most likely tomorrow, from what I've read, they will come out with the guidance and change their guidance. The state has been consistent, as well as the World Health Organization, that 3 feet is appropriate, as long as you have other mitigating strategies, right? Such as mask wearing and proper ventilation. We have both, and we've done both since the beginning. We actually are overdoing it with our ventilation. We increased our filter system to what was the MERV 13, highly recommended. But then we also bought air purifiers for every single classroom in the district because we felt that was the right thing to do to help with air exchange. Students will still be at 6 feet of distance during lunch. That's a chore for all the principals. We are taking over numerous spaces, such as our not only in cafeterias, but outside areas and gymnasiums. So we can have lunch where students are, when they take their mask off, they're 6 feet apart. Obviously, mask wearing, continued cleaning and disinfection protocols, hands-free water bottles, filling stations, sanitizer. You don't want to see what the sanitizer is doing to the floors in our schools. It's going to be a heck of a summer for our maintenance and custodial staff to clean wax down all of the sanitizer that gets on the floor and actually sticks to it and stays there. Assessment and repairs to HVA systems, procurement of air purification systems, the development of the COVID metric dashboard, and pool testing. And that's the piece I want to get to. That was a question one of the parents had. Why did we think about doing pool testing, and how can it be effective? Primary benefits is to help identify potential asymptomatic cases within a community. It's supposed to be building trust and confidence that, hey, we're looking out for those potential cases that may exist. Understanding coronavirus in schools and town. So what's the community impact? And then encourage the importance of safety measures among families out of school. So if we're seeing more pool testing, hey, we're doing this as a mitigating strategy. It's recommended you do this. I know there's probably less than 60% of the school districts in the Commonwealth are doing this. One, it's very time consuming. It's a lot of labor on our end with our nursing staff. And we are starting it, next Monday at the high school and with high school kids only. And I'll get to that 10% number in a minute. But we do believe that we want to stand this up to see if it has value. There were some concerns over the quarantine requirements of pool testing. And I sent this chart out to the Ashland High School families yesterday afternoon because there was confusion the night before on the webinar. And what I wanted to stress was that to participate in the pool testing does not mean if someone in your pool is positive that you have to quarantine. That's not true. What happens is this: if there's 10 individuals in a pool, let's assume we're testing on Mondays, which is what we're doing for cohort A. Now, this will change when we're back in full time based on how we want to do the pool testing. So Monday comes, we have the pool test. Those test tubes get sent away to a lab, and typically within 48 hours, so on Wednesday, we might get the information back. Parents will not be notified unless someone within the pool tested positive. Now, if someone in the pools tested positive, the next day, so let's assume a Thursday morning, we will have those 10 individuals test what they call the Binax Now. It's a rapid test. That's helping us to determine, of those 10 individuals, which is the individual, if it was only one, I'm just using that as the example, which individual is positive. It does not mean the other 9 are close contacts of that individual. It just means they were part of that pool. Those other 9 go right to class. They go to school. There's no harm, no foul, if you will, right? But the one individual that we've identified as positive, now they are quarantined, and we have to start the process of contact tracing and go through our normal quarantine requirements and procedures as outlined by the Department of Public Health. If in the rare case that everyone tested negative, we would require that all of those 10 get a PCR test, because we don't know which one would be potentially carrying the virus. So there's what I want to stress to the community, and I will again, while we have our pool set for Monday, if people want to sign up for the next round of testing, I welcome it. I encourage it. The more people we have participate, the better results we will get and the better understanding about COVID in our community, especially in our school community. There's no, again, I'll stress it, there's no requirement of quarantine unless you test positive, unless you come back in the second rapid test, the Binax test indicates that you were the positive individual. So there really is there's no downside to a student or family participating in this. Questions on this, because I know I had a couple questions from school committee members separately about this.
Kathy?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't think it's on the chart here, Jim, but how long does it take to get the Binax result? Or maybe you did say it, but
15 minutes.
Say it again, sorry.
15 minutes.
So you know pretty quickly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
And again, that's the secondary test if someone comes back positive in the pool.
Lori, do you mind if I ask a question?
Please.
Jim, obviously the number of people who have signed up to participate is pretty low.
Yep.
And I'm sure there's more we can be doing to sort of clarify what this is involved, and kind of really sharing the information you've shared here. I guess that my question is sort of looking down the road a little bit and asking, how much value is there in doing this if people aren't going to volunteer to participate? Is there value in doing it when only 10% of the population of the school is doing it? From what I've read, for it to really be effective in identifying cases, you really want 70, 80%. Yeah. And I'd really like to see people step up and sign up their kids to participate in this, so that we do have a useful tool to identify cases that are floating around that are asymptomatic and cut down not only on the risk of spreading our building, but also within the community.
Right. Yeah. Again, as a parent said to me, can we do a PR campaign? So I'm going to put together something tonight to go out for tomorrow to the high school families again, to say this is what it's really doing, and this is why it's valuable to us as a community to understand this and to participate in the pool testing. Everyone is struggling. I don't want to be, saying that we're the only community that's struggling getting that 70, 80%. We're not. Most communities are seeing between 50 and 60% of participation. And part of it is there's a fear of, again, it goes back to the fear of I have to quarantine now if my pool is positive, when that's not truly the case. So that's a messaging issue on our part. Many districts started at the beginning of the year where they were paying tens of thousands of dollars to do this. And the state gave us the opportunity to do it for free for 6 weeks. And for communities to look at it as a opportunity, then we're going to have to pay for it moving forward. And what I would say to you is put on my other hat as superintendent who's in charge of the financial responsibilities of the district. If we're not getting a significant amount of participation, how do I justify going to the board and say we need to spend, $50,000 on this? I don't know if I can, but I think Audrey, Ed, and I and the nurses thought we need to at least stand it up at the high school to see if it's going to be valuable and to see what kind of participation we get.
So, and then I guess that's sort of related to it is that I think my question, I think your answer related to students. I understand staff's mentality is a little different because they're in the position now of becoming vaccinated. So they're not as concerned about the risk of contracting it. Hopefully, I mean, it's I think a good sign that people are feeling more confident about being in the building based on the vaccines. But there still is, I think, a lot of uncertainty around the degree to which the vaccine prevents somebody from spreading it. And so if I'm fully vaccinated and I'm teaching, there's a possibility that I might get it, I might not know it, and then I'm sharing with other kids. And it seems like to the extent we can encourage staff to participate anyway, that certainly also is, I think it has a better prophylactic impact than if we really just have 10% of kids, 15% of staff doing that.
Yeah, it's a good point. And again, there's this competing information, right? And there's a competing dialogue out there. If you're vaccinated and you wear a mask, or even if you just wear a mask, and both of us are wearing masks, that there's very little likelihood of it spreading amongst us. And so there's that mentality that, okay, I'm vaccinated and I'm wearing a mask. Why do I need to go? Why am I even worried about the pool testing? So they're competing interests, if you will, trying to get everyone to participate. And that's the argument that I've heard from our faculty is, listen, it's not required. We can't require it. Can't require it of kids. But that being said, some districts have moved with students anyway, thinking about their athletic programs, saying if you want to compete, then you need to, participate in the pooling. But they started that on September 1. They were doing the pool testing all the way through. Certainly, I certainly would entertain doing that for sure. We've got another season starting coming up. The board could certainly entertain that as a requirement to participate in athletics and activities.
How many kids do we have participating in athletics as a whole in a given season?
Stephen?
Around 200 right now.
About a quarter of the student population at the high school?
Yep. Kelly, do you know offhand the actual final numbers of our pool? Yeah, I know you do. You're muted.
I do, but I can't unmute myself.
Okay.
We're at about 135.
Right. Okay.
So there's probably some overlap there, but we could get the number maybe up to 20%.
Right.
For compelling athletics. And Jim, what about the possibility of requiring kids who are participating in other activities, with different clubs and things like that?
I don't think he isolated just athletics, Mark. I think any of those activities would be, I think if you want to participate in any activity that includes athletics, that includes, drama, whatever it is, you need to participate or in the pooling. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's ultimately for anybody who's making the decision, because it is discretionary, this is probably one of those things where it really is more about the community as a whole than it is the individual. Obviously,
Yes.
you get the benefit of identifying whether you have it when you might not know. So, but it really, by that point, you are where you are as an individual student or individual staff member. So this is really about, protecting the high school community. I mean, assuming we're talking about just the high school.
Yeah.
I certainly hope people are involved in that.
Yeah, it really, I think, again, it's about protecting the whole community. Again, data's pretty clear about, it's more apt to spread through young adults who would carry a more viral load than, a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old. That's not to say they're not carrying the load. It's just you're more likely to have the older student population carry it. So that's really the quarantining or the pool testing and the quarantine requirements. And again, tomorrow I will, I see Ms. Brand on here. I will again go out and make sure that I have a presentation that folks can see, and even maybe next week host a webinar talking about just the pool testing requirements and what it means. I think that might help get more people involved and be willing to sign up for it.
And Jim, would you include, a link to sign up along with the new, with your info?
That link will be there forever. The challenge is this, Kathy, is that, Kelly and Aaron and the nursing staff at the high school, I don't know how many hours it took them to take the list and then to look at schedules of students and then to pool them in groups of 10 so they can have a system to be able to track and have students do the test on Monday and or on Thursday. It's a lot of work. And the more kids we add to it, it impacts pools as well. We could start a separate pool, and then when we bring all kids back, how are we looking at the pooling? It's a lot of work.
Can I ask one more question, maybe directing it through you to Stephen?
Yeah.
I'm mulling over the idea of expanding or requiring testing for athletics or activities. And I know it's a broader question than just athletics, so maybe Kelly wants to chime in too, but I'm mindful of the fact that we have entered into a season, at least in terms of practices. And I want to be mindful of what kind of disruption this causes when kids signed up for volleyball, football, whatever they've signed up for, and now there's going to be a condition on their participation placed, just as the games start, so to speak. So I'm just curious about thoughts on sort of how that's going to play out as a practical matter.
I mean, I can let Stephen answer, and Kelly, before I do, Mark, I wouldn't recommend starting it now during this full season. I would say the next season. I mean, that's just my my concern. I'll tell you, that is one of the concerns a lot of parents had was if we participate and I play a sport, now one person's positive out of that pool, does that mean every person's a close contact and the sport shuts down?
Right.
Stephen, Kelly, thoughts?
I mean, I do agree that if we were going to entertain that, it would be probably wise of us to start that at the beginning of a season. I think it would be really challenging to implement that right now. I mean, we could do it.
If people wanted to opt out and then not play, then they've paid their athletic fees and so forth. Like there's a ripple effect to that. But just moving forward, though, this is an opportunity, especially over the next 6 weeks, that it would be really unfortunate if we didn't try to make the most of it as a community. Kathy, did you have something else? Who did I hear chime in? Paul?
I thought Kelly was going to chime in.
Oh,
there.
Kelly. Sorry, Kelly.
I was just asking the question, can people join now
Yes.
for the the first week, but get it on the second week and on?
Yes. And that was the message. That's why it'll go out again tomorrow. And that was Kathy Bates's point, is that, am I going to send the link again? The answer is yes. It's the same link to sign up. And I asked people to email me to make sure that, because it's a lot of data individuals in there, because we've used this company before. there's data in there from before that I have to clean out, that it's important I get an email saying I signed up, my child signed up, so we can get it to you, Kelly and Aaron, without having to rerun another, Excel sheet and then compare it, which we could. It's not difficult, but.
And just one, Kelly, I don't know what your feeling is about how starting the testing would apply to the clubs. Is that something that you'd also want to at least wait till April 12th when everybody comes back full time? Is that doesn't have a season to it? So I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I think it's a good idea. I think we still don't have a lot of clubs that are meeting in person. So I don't know that it would have a huge impact, but I think April 12th makes sense. We're also going to have to look at schedules are all going to change. We have several students that aren't able to participate yet because they have study hall first, but are going to start in 3 weeks when the schedule changes.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, it's interesting, Mark. It's a very complex process, believe it or not, getting this underway.
I appreciate that. What I'm really, I would like this to be something that we're doing.
Yep.
But I don't want it to be a waste of energy for a participation level that really is not going to tell us anything.
Right.
Right.
And
that's even another conversation, Mark, because if at some point over the next few weeks, and we see that it's sort of hovering at 10%, I mean, we have to have another conversation about whether 25% is enough better to make a difference in what we're trying to do here. And if it's not, then perhaps the disruption and whatever other fallout, it's another conversation after we see how the next couple of weeks go.
Yeah,
I'm sure Jim will be keeping us, all posted on that. And hopefully some of the clarification of the information has reassured people that this is a good thing to do.
Based on the emails I'm receiving, it has. It's already helped.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Who else on this before we move to the next one? Okay, Jim.
So I'm not going to go through all of these frequently asked questions. These are posted online. This slide deck will be posted online. These were all questions that were part of the reopening, the K-5 document I sent out, as well as the 912. So everyone has these. I just put these on, a few of these on. And what I want to highlight is I want to talk about the streaming component and the nuts and bolts of the day-to-day operation. I think Kelly and Dave did a really nice job in their webinars talking about the challenges they have, certainly, with regard to class sizes. We want to maximize the amount of space between kids in the building. That means we'll be utilizing rooms such as, Dave, I always call it the little theater. Talk to me. What's it called?
Lecture hall.
Lecture hall, in gymnasiums, and all those for classrooms possibly. And all these little spaces or bigger spaces because of class size. And we want to be cognizant that there will be rooms where we don't have the same technology that we have in some classrooms as well. That could quite possibly happen. When I thought about the streaming and what was the best approach, I certainly looked at how often have we actually shut down a classroom in the schools. What has been the streaming experience of not only the educators, but of parents? Believe me, I've received numerous emails on both sides of the ledger, if you will, as to streaming should continue or streaming shouldn't continue. And I've had conversations with teachers as well. And what is clear with COVID is no matter what decision we make, it's the wrong decision for somebody. And we had to come to an idea, or I had to get my head around what is the best educational practice for our students and for our teaching staff. And I wholeheartedly am committed to our teachers focusing strictly on one model of learning, which is the in-person model. There's going to be a lot of work building that community. There's going to be a lot of work reducing anxiety. And it's not just about I know we talk a lot about, we are an academic institution, and I agree 1000%. That is my job, to ensure that the Ashland Public Schools are as in tune to their being the best academic institutions possible. That's why you pay me. But without having our students being comfortable, less anxious, our teachers less anxious, our staff in the building who are having more and more kids come into the building less anxious, we need to have an avenue of learning, which is, to me, the only way to do it is through the full in-person learning time at this point. I think if you talk to any educator, the remote experience, whether you're teaching it or, some students may thrive in it, but teaching is about active learning to me. Teaching is about getting our kids to be active in the class, teachers being active in the class, not standing in front of a board with a computer faced on with a camera and dictating information. While some may say, well, we're in a pandemic and that's the only way we can get information to everyone, it's still not good teaching. We want teachers to be comfortable going back to a modicum of what they've been used to doing in terms of teaching. And, simultaneously trying, and I've had this conversation with a lot of teachers, simultaneously trying to interact with those who are at home and the class is really challenging. And even now we're seeing more and more students in this model who are home, who are not engaged. They're not engaging in conversation. They got their screens off at times. And the only way for a teacher to stream in and to ensure those students are actually getting material is to walk back around and ensure that kids are online. Teaching is a lot about engaging all the kids and participants in the class. I understand that we're putting students, families have said, you're putting my student at a disadvantage if we have to quarantine. What I would suggest is, we haven't had to for quite some time, knock on wood, at the middle or the high school. Yes, we're going to have more students and there's potential of it occurring. But I firmly believe if we're following our protocols and people are participating in the pool testing and we are, mindful of our activities outside of our building and we're wearing masks and using hand sanitizer, we're not going to have to worry about this. I'm also concerned about long-term impact, meaning, does this now become a norm when we start the school year next year that, Jimmy and Kelly and Kate are out from one class for a variety of reasons? Is that the expectation, is that we're going to continue to stream for those kids now? I want to be very careful about that. Because I don't believe it's a good teaching technique. And we have to, that's why I've landed on not doing that. That doesn't mean we're not going to communicate with the children who are quarantined. It does not mean we are not going to prepare material for them. It does not mean that some teachers may choose to stream themselves. Remember, at the high school, it wasn't required. Kelly, what did we have? Maybe 50 or 60% of the teachers?
60 to 70.
Closer to 70% who chose to do that on their own.
I'll say,
Yep, go ahead.
I think a lot of them did it based on the class and what was happening in the class as well.
Right.
Which I imagine is what they will continue to do.
Yeah. But as a mandate or requirement from me, I'm not recommending that to you. I think it's ineffective and I do believe it's inefficient long term. So I'll get back to that. But that answers why, for me, not having the interactive component, which I think is critical to teaching. I remember my days in the classroom. It was the building of the relationships. It was the interaction with the kids. It was walking while they were working on a paper and giving feedback. It was answering questions that were occurring. That was all about the teaching in the moment.
So, hey, Jim, before
Yep.
before you move away from streaming,
Sure.
part of me wonders if people have been listening to us throughout this time, there might be a misperception on the numbers that we'll be talking about when it comes to quarantining as well, because of the considerations that we no longer have. And what I mean is, I know at one point we had literally 150 families filling out the travel form, and our travel policy had them quarantining, right? At least for some period of time. And so our numbers on our chart showed a tremendous number of students quarantining, but as I recall, there was a lot of them that were quarantining by choice because of travel, because families were making that choice. We know the policy, we're going to go anyway, because we're really only sacrificing 2 in-person days and things like that. Now we've, changed that policy, and governor's also changing the travel order to a travel advisory, right? So, so can you give some kind of context as to the scale and the numbers of students that had been quarantined that were due to travel?
So I would say, when I share the numbers for today, it's upwards of 50 to 60% of our numbers typically are travel related that have been quarantined. So today you'll see the data of quarantine of 50. I think it's 50, and 20 plus were travel related. And it's come down, obviously, because we're in school, but it's not necessarily related to the break that just occurred. We have not had an instance in the high school or the middle school where we've quarantined students in school because of school, because of a case, a positive case in our school system. Since, Dave and Kelly, correct me, I think it's been December where we've had that. And our cases of students who are quarantined are because of the positive cases at home. And when that occurs, kids who are quarantined are required to stay home. And, last week we talked about a scenario of a household where we saw a large increase in our overall COVID numbers. Well, Ed and Audrey can tell you, this week we had another individual in that household, which we knew would become eventually positive. So it's another student, but they haven't been in school. Our families have been great. And I will say this, they have been great about, making sure their kid gets tested, or they call the nurse and say, hey, I've got this, I'm just going to keep them home today. And then calling and getting that information from their pediatricians. And we have not been quarantining, especially at the high school and the middle school, large groups of kids because of in-person, in-school close contacts. Now, the argument is we have more kids and there's potential of more close contacts, right? That's the argument. That if someone is positive, there could be a larger group of close contacts because of the density of how many kids are around that child now.
Yeah, but I do think it's important for people to understand that the overwhelming majority of the sources come from the adults in the household.
Absolutely.
And typically the time frame in which you calculate close contacts wouldn't include students in school, because typically the parent is going to become positive, be tested positive, then you'll start that process. And if the student doesn't test positive at that point, you're not a close contact of a close contact. So,
right. Yeah.
So the likelihood that occurs is still low.
Sure. And listen, I certainly understand the trepidation and the anxiety that exists. And as I stated at the beginning, I'm in that unique scenario of my own I'm asking our families in this town to go back And I'm doing the same with my own kids. And I'm doing, and my wife is, like I said, as an AP Spanish teacher, she can't wait to get her kids in the school because she knows that is a better learning environment than trying to teach kids in front of you and go back and check on them and make sure they get the information. I've heard scenarios of, okay, well, maybe just turn on the microphone. Well, and let them listen to whatever you're doing. Well, what if the teacher is in the back of the room and having conversations with kids and they're moving around and having that opportunity to interact now in a different way? I could foresee in 2 weeks getting a call. Hey, Jim, we can't hear the teacher. They're not not speaking loud enough for us. Well, no, they're over here having a conversation with a kid in a different manner because they're interacting. Those are just scenarios I foresee happening. And again, it's not an easy yes or no for any one of us. It's just where I landed when I made the recommendation to the school committee.
Jim, along those lines, maybe it'd be helpful, at least for my thoughts. We obviously over time, way pre-COVID, have had circumstances where kid breaks a leg and is at home for 2 weeks or is sick with some virus or what have you. How do we take care of that kid? How do we make sure that they're getting an education, and what's different about that as compared to where we are now?
Sure. I'll let Kelly, I can answer from my old principal days, but I'll let Kelly answer how they would deal with even a hospitalization, if you will, or scenarios that we've dealt with in the past. But
it varies depending on the length. But for something that might be a week long, a week and a half, it usually is the teachers and students communicating and often sending home, copies of notes or, blank, assignment sheets, telling the students, that you're sick. We'll coordinate when you return on how you're going to make up that work, and then giving extensions. I think teachers see, the kind of what they've learned this year as a way to improve on that for sure, because they do, they'll continue to use the Google Classroom and have stuff, things will be there for the students to access. I've had conversations about the number of videos that teachers made over the course of the last year that they would be able to send to those students at home that they didn't have previously. But before it was more of a let's see what you can do while you're out, and we'll work with you after school in order to get you caught up when you return.
We've used, I don't know if that feedback's mine. I think we've used this outside vendor in the past for kids who are out of school for a long time. Would that come into play as one tool for these 7 to 10 day absences, or is that really more of a longer term thing?
We've actually used a different but similar vendor, I don't think for a short term it wouldn't make sense. If it ended up being something that was, we look at it more for a something that's over 14 school days for that type of thing.
So I think too, Mark, what I hear a lot of parents is saying, my kid's going to be out 10 days of missed 10 days of school. That's not true, right? That's not really, that's not the case. When we're looking at when a student is identified as the close contact, and if they have to go into quarantine, Ed, I think you're still on here, correct me if I'm wrong, but after that 6th day, they can be tested. And on day 8, they come back into the school if they have no symptoms.
Yeah, so on the quarantine, they get tested on day 5 or 6. And just remember the exposure date is day 0.
Right.
Day 5 or 6 for a close contact. And then as long as they're asymptomatic and negative with a PCR test, they go back to normal activities on day 8.
So again, we're talking calendar days, not school days. So we could potentially have, you've got your weekend in there as well. So we're looking at certainly less than 10 school days where students would be impacted.
Well, and Jim, is that, I assume that's for being a close contact of someone outside your household.
That is correct. If it's in your
So-
household, it's 14, it's
Right, you're out for 14 days. I just want to be clear,
14
because
total days. Yes,
that would be from an external thing. You were in close contact with somebody at dance or something like that.
correct.
But if it's your parent, you're the 14 days.
That's right.
I guess I feel like what this comes down to for all of us is, there's an element of, people don't always know where they're picking it up, right? We track these cases oftentimes when they're inside of a home, or mom or dad gets it and then it spreads within the household, and you can see that. We don't always know where mom or dad got it to begin with. And so it just seems to me that, this is one of those things. In order to make this work, not only do people have to do what you were talking about before, Jim, which is really be communicative with our nursing staff and letting us know what's going on, but as much as everybody's kind of fed up with it, we need to keep doing the protective stuff outside of the school building. We need to keep maintaining social distancing and kind of paying attention to even the revised CDC guidance on when, after you've been vaccinated, what do you do, and what can you do or what can't you do. And I think that just that's kind of the individual responsibility piece of managing this and making it work for all the kids.
Right.
I think every parent and probably every kid and every faculty member wants to be able to get back into school. So we all just have to be able to do our part of it, try to get through the next few months to make this thing work without having these kind of disruptions. I'm sure they're going to happen. They're to a degree they're unavoidable, but this certainly was one of my concerns, exactly for the reasons that Melanie said earlier. But I do appreciate why the streaming is not appropriate for where we are going to be now, or where I think we're going to be now. But it's obviously still important that everybody remain committed to the kids. And I think what's been shared, and particularly Kelly's last comment, is really helpful to me in understanding how we're going to support kids really in the same way that we would have 2 years ago if somebody was out for a week or so.
Actually, I think it'll be better because of some of the tools we do have now, Mark. Like Kelly said, even with the Google Classroom, and staff is not going to get rid of using those things just because we're back in person. They're more apt to continue to use that as a tool that they didn't have in their toolbox of teaching before, for sure. I also think we're committed, I've had this conversation with the principals, we're committed to be checking in every day, somebody on our staff checking in every day with these kids to ensure that they're getting the work, to ensure that they're doing okay. I think it's important that we continue that dialogue with those kids.
And to your point earlier, Mark, and sometimes I'm chiming in as sort of the old lady who's already been through a lot of this, but I did have kids who have already been through high school and graduated. A couple of them needed extended absences for illnesses. I had an extended family member with a very serious illness that missed a lot of school. There have always been plans, teachers and administrators and everybody who knows that these things happen, and they step up and they address it, and the kids get educated. All my kids have graduated college and beyond. The difference here, and I understand it, perhaps obviously the quarantining is a new element that we never had to deal with before, and there may be greater risk that this could happen to somebody, but it won't be the first time that the teachers and administrators have had to deal with it. And as Jim said, they're prepared for it, and may even have more resources because we've been doing this for a year. So, what I've tried to do to reassure some of the people that have come to me with concerns is to share that, you're not going to be left in the lurch to quarantine alone with no support for however many days that is. There's a system, there's always been a system to help students who can't be in school, in present. And, if you balance that against the challenges of just, requiring teachers to push the button or put themselves on video, I think people, I hope they can have a little bit of faith that we're prepared for this to happen to some people. and are making plans and have talked about it and have, and in fact, done it before for other reasons. So, I mean, if that helps at all, I mean, I can say that I've actually been through, my kids missing some extended school, and I was with some of these same people who are on the meeting supporting us, and did they did very well.
So, yeah, and Lauren, thank you for saying that. I think, again, there's this feeling that if I have to quarantine, it's not my fault. It's being done to us, right? It's unfair to us that we have to quarantine because somebody else was the positive case. And I totally can understand that. And I'm not discounting the fact that that's how folks feel, that that I did the right thing, yet I'm being penalized that I have to stay home now, and I don't have that luxury of having that in-person educational component. I get it. I understand it. And like I said, I sort of have tried to take a holistic view of what's best for the entire district, including what's best for our educators and their approach to their daily work, so they can be successful the remaining 40 days of the year and enter next fall with great hope and optimism for a fantastic school year. We want to end on a positive note, where last year, I think March to June was abysmal for all of us, and the not knowing all summer and what would happen in the fall. We have an opportunity now to get our students back in and get our faculty back in and get that normalcy of teaching and learning again, that rhythm, if you will. And I have no doubt that if we have a case, and there will be cases, but if we have a case where kids are quarantined, we will, in fact, make sure those students are staying on top of their work, are getting the appropriate work. So when they come back, they're not behind. And if they are a little bit behind, that they get the help to catch them back up. We're committed to that. That's what we've always done. But many families haven't been in that situation where they've had to, use that service from us, right? So I appreciate the comments you made about you living it. Different scenario, different health reasons, but we're really good at that. And our teachers are really good at that.
Well, I would add too, I lived through it too, just like Lori. So I had a student, he was home going on probably 6 days missing of school. And I just thought, oh, he'll get caught up. But the dean reached out to me and said, let me help you. I can touch base with all the teachers and make sure he's getting all the work that he needs. So those supports have been there before this pandemic.
So I'll take more questions in a moment, but as I move on, I think one of the questions has been what size of the classrooms are going to look like. We're going to have as few as 14 in a class to as large as 30. In that 30, we can still keep them at 3 feet of space, but we may have to move them to different areas of the building to ensure that. The bus information, again, this will all be posted. Signing up for the bus, making sure school committee adjusted policy last week at a meeting. There will be potentially three students per bus seat for elementary, and up to 2, 6 through 12. I don't know those full numbers, but it actually looks like less and less are, more work for my principals and assistant principals. It looks like more people are going to be still driving than what are taking the bus, which is not unexpected, to be honest. But again, we will beg for patience with our families and our drivers to ensure that we can do it in a smooth fashion, and we will use our law enforcement to help with any back flow on the major routes. Lunches, again, 6 feet. Drop-off procedures, principals will go through all that. special education services, again, like I mentioned, and Kathy will mention, services will be provided. Not only are they mandated, we will find and work with each individual family to ensure if they're in person or remote, that they're getting the services they need, as we've always done. As a parent, like I said, of a middle school special education student myself, I appreciate how our directors of student services and our special education programs do reach out and make sure that our families and our students are being taken care of. And that's the last slide. I will stop the slideshow so I can see people. If you have questions on anything further with this.
And Jim,
So,
just
for the committee, just so everybody understands where we're at, you all know this, but just I'm reiterating the return to school for the K through 5, that's April 5th, that's mandated, that's happening. And the next step that we would be taking here at this meeting is taking a vote on the April 12th return to school for the middle school and the high school. So whatever remaining questions you have, school committee members, now, before we take that vote, now's the time for those questions.
So Jim, I wanted to follow up on your last point you were speaking about with students who have IEPs.
Yep.
And, that's obviously a population that, by definition needs more support in their learning and in the educational environment. I know there are some concerns, particularly for people who, when they're in a hybrid model, then they would most likely get their supports at school. But for those who've now maybe chosen to go full remote, and I know there aren't a lot of families that are really changing in that direction, but can you talk a little bit more detail about sort of at least the process by which we're figuring out what students need that's different than what it was before, how we're delivering what they need differently than we did before?
Sure, I'll let Kathy weigh in a second, but I think we've had less than 10 kids total so far between the 4 schools that have moved from full in-person or hybrid to remote, just so you know. And I don't think any of them, correct me if I'm wrong, principals, I don't think any of them are IEP students. I don't believe so.
So that really means that's not an issue.
Correct.
And then, so anybody who's going to be in school more often, going the other direction,
right,
it's probably an easier model to service, right?
I don't know about easier, but that it puts a lot of pressure again on Kathy's office and the principals to start looking at service delivery methods and models to ensure that the IEPs are met. Yes. Kathy, you want to weigh in on that?
I think this year has just been the constancy of having good communication and flexibility. And so if there is any kind of change with regard to how services are being delivered, we are reaching out and talking to families so that they understand what those changes might be. Certainly for a student who's coming into school fully versus having been in the hybrid, that opportunity for potentially more face-to-face servicing can happen, but not in total, because we still do have some of our staff who will be staying remote themselves and might be delivering services remotely as they have been all year, to this point in time. Yeah. So again, we would be communicating with families and taking, special ed students, it's all individualized. So it's really looking at each individual situation, each individual student, and trying to come up with the best possible plan, giving all of the variables that we're trying to work with. And I will say that Ashland parents, by and large, are incredibly good at, one, advocating for their child and communicating with us. And we've had great collaborative relationships by and large through this year, and it's been a challenging year for parents. So I just figure it's going to continue just like that. We're going to be collaborating, we're going to be communicating, and we're all going to be coming up with creative solutions to what might be an individual problem.
So I want to touch on one point because it clicked a note in my head with regard to staff. And I think it's important when we're looking at the middle school in particular, and even in the high school to an extent, that we do have a number of educators who are out, who are immunocompromised and who have been doing a lot of, could be streaming or remote teaching into the school. And those educators will still be out for the remainder of the year. And so that impacts, again, class sizes and things that we can do. Even though more kids might be coming in, some of those teachers will be streaming. That's just the accommodation that we've made for those educators. So it's important to understand that not all of our staff, when we open the doors, is flooding back into the buildings either. So.
Who else? Are you guys ready for a motion?
Well, I guess, Laura, I don't have any more questions. I guess I'd like to just or express my thoughts on the subject. I mean, I'm certainly ready to support Jim's recommendation. I think it's the things that I've struggled with and sort of how I've gotten past them. I guess I'd say that 3 weeks ago, if we were taking this vote and we had in front of us the information then that really was pointing towards is 3 feet really safe, I would have struggled with that, I know there are a lot of studies that probably point in different directions out there, and I don't tend to be able to judge which one is more accurate than the other. But certainly the fact that CDC is moving its guidance from 6 feet to 3 feet is a really significant factor in my mind and being comfortable in supporting this. And I really appreciate, Jim, the detail and the depth of your discussion on the streaming issue. That was another thing. I'm like, well, we should be able to do that. I was kind of looking at it, much like a couple of people made comments in public comment. It's like, why can't we just put that on? And I didn't appreciate, I think, the complexity of it and how it really potentially compromises what the teacher's able to do for the kids that are there. And I didn't know about the supports, although I always assumed they'd be there, that Kelly and high school have provided. So, it's when I try to balance it for myself, I kind of looked at, okay, the data is now saying the difference between 3 and 6 feet in terms of spread is really negligible. And then I think about where the kids are and just know that at least one of mine has become increasingly disengaged as time's gone on. And I know that is a representation of what's going on, at least statewide and probably nationally. So that to me, we're at a point where it's time to get kids back in. That certainly the vaccination is a major factor. I know we're not all the way there yet and won't be probably till the school year's over, but for me, I think it's time to move forward. So I'm going to support the superintendent's recommendation.
Does anybody else have anything they want to share about that before I take a motion?
I don't feel the need to basically, recite what Mark said. I think there's what we've talked about is good. I think it was important also that the preparedness and the effectiveness of that support you can get remotely, I think was incredibly a good point. So both the teachers have better tools to support the students that might need quarantine, and the students are better prepared because of this year. If there is a silver lining, there is that. So going forward, anyone who's out for any reason, if it's next year, year after, we're probably in a better position to support their learning remotely anyway than we have been in the past. So,
anybody else?
I'm fine. I'm ready with to vote on a motion. I don't think we'll ever address like any of the one-off concerns or special circumstances, but we've done the best we can. I think the science is backing up our decision. I think there's arguments for and against the timing, just as far as the start-stop with vacation, but let's just go for it, because I do think, I think that where that argument lands is correct. And what Jim says is like, if we do wait till after vacation, then it's mid-May before we're really making traction. I don't want to see that sort of slide. So let's, we always know that we can return, even if, well, this is a mandate from the commissioner and the governor and whatnot, but should we run into issues, we know that we have alternative models that work. So let's go for it.
Thank you, Erin.
Before you go,
Kathy, did you have anything you wanted to add before I chime in? You're good?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and Mark, I agree with what you started out with, so I'm not going to repeat it, but I will just say, I don't think it's lost on any of the teachers and administrators and our adjustment counselors and people who, Ms. Cutler and everybody on your team, all the layers that are involved and the anxiety, there was a lot that it took a lot out of us. I mean, every single person is experiencing this pandemic, and some of us, to a greater extreme than others, but we're all in it, and we all had to sort of adjust into this situation. And now we're making another big adjustment, and we are very well aware, especially the experts, of which I'm not one of them, but I certainly, even in my own life, having to start to change and start doing maybe some things again that I haven't done in a year. We're mindful of the challenges that presents for everybody, wherever you are. And we know that there's no decision that we can make right now or during this entire process that's going to work for everybody. So we're taking the input. I've said to somebody, I think in a letter today, I mean, we haven't made a single decision without getting input from Audrey and Ed on the medical part of it. We've been on top of what the CDC is saying and what the state is saying. We have, Ms. Cutler and Ms. Shields and our own experts on staff. We have Ms. Silva with special ed. I mean, we have a lot of talented people that are weighing in on these decisions that are some of the most difficult decisions that any of us have been part of ever, and none of us could have anticipated. So with that, all I really just want to say is I do support your recommendation, Jim, but also acknowledge, the different levels of difficulty, as well as, excitement about a change, especially for kids who may have been struggling to get back to their friends and their teachers. So with that, if anybody wants to make a motion, now is a good time, unless you have any last questions.
I'll move to.
So
yes.
hold on one second.
Sorry.
Jim, did you
Yeah, go
still
ahead.
have something you wanted to say?
I've still got one more piece of COVID after this. I can say it then, Paul. Thanks.
Oh, okay, because you had mentioned
yep.
you wanted to say
Yeah,
something.
let's handle the return to school, and then we'll go to the next part of it, the
Sorry,
chart
Mark.
and so forth. Who's got it?
I'll make a motion to approve the return to school plan as presented by the superintendent.
Second.
Or she can.
And then all in favor, Aaron Williams,
Aye.
Mark Terry,
Aye.
Paul Kendall,
Aye.
Kathy Bates,
Aye.
and I for me as well. That passes. Thank you. And then Jim.
Yeah. So I will now share our weekly information. I want to just comment on two things. One, Aaron had brought up the point with regard to the ability to shift between models, that we have some flexibility. I want to caution us all that we will not have flexibility in the sense of K through 8 after April 26th. The commissioner actually has made it pretty clear that you would have to request a waiver if you want to move from the model, any model you're in currently, into a remote setting. I know for a fact that he has denied local districts who have had cases and mini outbreaks, if you will, within their district, who wanted to go from hybrid to remote. He denied that and said that those remote days would no longer count towards structured learning time. And he's made that pretty clear. So I don't want everyone to assume we can just jump into that. Because someone did ask me that earlier today, what about the metrics? And metrics, to a certain extent, we're going to continue to follow them. And we will, when we went to fully remote, if you remember, I actually had to call the commissioner's office with our information and tell them, this is what we're doing, and they agreed to it. But it's not a given that we can just move from one model to another because of community outbreak. I just want to be clear with that. It's one more piece they took out of our hands locally. I am going to share this screen. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
It's our weekly update, if you will. As you can see, our cases are at 18 for the week. It dropped down 22. We had that big outbreak a week ago where we talked about 3 or 4 families having a huge impact. And that really, if you look at the 7 on the 15th, that was the ending of that impact of schools, children, if you will, school-aged kids. They have not been in school. They've been quarantined from back here. But that being said, we anticipated that number would be positive. Last week, I think there was one, Ed, if I remember correctly, one had not tested positive yet, and they just finally did. So again, we're trending, back down. Half the quarantine of the 50 are travel related. The governor just shifted his travel policy again today. It's not a executive order. It's an advisory. So what does that mean? In essence, there are no green states anymore. If you want to go to Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire for the day skiing, you come back, you don't have a requirement of having to quarantine or produce a PCR test. But if you go overnight for more than 24 hours, then from his old order, the 72-hour PCR test comes into play. We had 3 student cases, again, like I said, on the 13th and the 15th that were a result of the household transmission from last week. You'll notice, again, that our numbers are pretty consistent. They're starting to drop again, which we expected. We didn't have that. These outbreaks were not because of vacation, which Ed, I know you're on here. We didn't really see that occur. Is that correct?
Yeah, we were expecting another jump just so that it was similar with all the other breaks, and it didn't happen this time.
Yeah. So I don't know what that means with April coming upon us, April break, but we're still seeing a decline statewide in the positivity rate from the week before. We're tracking I started this last week. We're tracking our 7-day rate because that coincides with the CDC guidance as to whether you're a community of low transmission, moderate transmission, high risk, et cetera. And we're falling between the low and the moderate as a community, which they say in that area you should be open for school. We still fall in the yellows from the state metrics. So there's really nothing new to report. Stay in the hybrid next week. Our numbers went down significantly from the prior week because we had that huge outbreak the week before.
So same model for next week, no meeting tomorrow.
Correct.
And then athletics, this might be a good time, Stephen, to pipe in. And I know you've had some challenges with the scrimmage.
So before I get to Stephen, there are 2 things I want to make sure. One, before Stephen speaks, I had asked as we go into the full in-person, when we set the standard that when we were remote, we would not be we would not be participating in athletics. And remember, we talked about that at the beginning of the year. We do have students, again, the commissioner has said if students want to finish the year off in remote learning, that they can. We have some student athletes who play tennis who have been remote all year and want to continue in remote and play tennis. I'm recommending that we allow that to occur. It's different scenario than the full school in having to move to a remote because of COVID. So that's my piece on there.
Yep.
Sorry, Stephen.
Oh, no worries. I agree. Thank you, Jim. So, I mean, in terms of athletics, we ran into one issue this week that I'd like to bring to the committee's attention. When I did my presentation back in February, I asked for flexibility in terms of scheduling it in case we missed a game due to COVID. That has happened this week. A freshman football team, our opponent this week, their team is quarantined. So currently that team has nobody to play. There is nobody else in the league that is available. I have been able to secure a team that is outside of the TVL that can come play our freshman team to be able to give them a game. So I would like to ask permission from the committee to be able to schedule non-league opponents if it's an absolute necessity to give these kids a chance to play.
Anybody take issue with that?
Well, just any input from Ed or Audrey on that? Any concerns there? They're different.
No, no, I'm good with it. Just because we're really watching these teams, and you know the coaches are talking ahead of time, making sure that there's no positive cases.
Yeah, so I guess, are we hosting in that case?
Yes, we are.
So, and the reason I ask is, you know, everything we've been doing is based on what the TVL has decided, what we're doing relative to what TVL decided. You go outside of that, what rules are we talking about, right? So if in those circumstances we're hosting, our rules apply, and you can, you know, through Ed or whoever is appropriate, ensure that we're not at an elevated risk, then I don't have an issue. But just, I would need those kind of things to be able to vote for it, right? Because that's the whole premise of why we've been doing what we've been doing. There's been some understanding of a baseline of what other teams are doing, and an agreement upon that. So I think we'd still need to, for me at least, to stay within those bounds.
Yeah, sure. And we have certainly, the school that I'm talking about is in the Bay State Conference. They're right here. We work hand in hand with them. They're following almost all the same exact policies and procedures. And the fact that we are home means that, yes, we are in control of the event that's going to be hopefully happening on Saturday morning.
Paul, can I ask, just so that Stephen doesn't have to come back every single time there's a game or an opportunity, and it might have to be at the other field? I mean, can we, if the understanding is it will be vetted for teams that are using the same or similar protocols, or are you asking that, you know, every time there's an opportunity that's not home base, we've got to have a meeting about it?
Well, I mean, you know, so I'm just bringing forth the.
No, I understand the concern,
context
but
in
are
which we
you
made every
okay
decision,
with
so.
saying, if Stephen knows your concern, can he vet it, or do you want to have the opportunity to hear about it each time?
I don't need to be the clearinghouse for it. I don't think any of us are the clearinghouse for that. But you know, I'd be fine if we can phrase it like that and have Ed be able to check out and be comfortable with the protocols and things that are going on there. I mean, if it was possible for us to always host and be in control of it, that would be awesome too. But I don't know if that's possible.
I mean, what we could do is, if we're going to do this, Stephen and I could just talk, and what I can do is I can just reach out to the Board of Health director in that community and just see what things look like and see if they have any concern also.
I think Paul's point is that that we want to make sure that whatever community we're talking about is following rules that are at least as restrictive. Right? Laurie's point, at least as restrictive or protective, however you want to say it, as we are. That they are following basically the rules that TVL is following, or something better. And you know, I think that's a reasonable way to say, in my view at least, that if that has been determined to be the case, you know, with the input of Stephen and Ed or Audrey, I certainly don't want you coming back here, Stephen, every time. And I don't think it's practical, given, you know, this I think you learned about this yesterday. We just were fortunate we had a meeting tonight. Maybe it was even this morning. So, you know, I agree with your thought process, Laurie, and approach on that. And I think Paul's also raising some really important points, that if we're going to sort of increase the authority to go outside TVL, we need to make sure that the standards TVL is set are going to be met in that game.
Yeah, basically, we don't want to find out, oh yeah, the one we were going to play is quarantining for all the prudent reasons we would do it. But the other team is available because, oh yeah, the member that was positive is home, right?
Right.
So we're all good. And that wouldn't be cool, right?
Erin or Kathy, do you guys have anything to add?
No, that sounds good.
Okay, so who's got the motion?
Is that something you want to take a whack at, Mark, or I can?
No, I was looking to you, Paul, on this one. You raised the issue, go for it.
Paul, you usually have it written out by now.
But you and Lori are the ones that had the solution for it. So, no, I would move that we allow the athletic director to schedule outside of the TVL if necessary, and after consultation with our COVID lead, that the other school is at least following protocols that are at least as stringent as ours.
I'll second that.
And then all in favor, Paul?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Erin?
Aye.
Kathy?
Aye.
An aye for me, that passes. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
And then anything else on athletics, Stephen, before I move
No,
back to
everything's
Jim?
fine.
Jim, we need to vote on those couple of days off.
But no, we're not
No?
taking days off, but I
mean, not off, but
I
yeah.
want the remote students participating.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So Jim, what's that? I mean, we've always said that it's if the district moves to full.
Right. We
So-
just didn't delineate, I don't think, at the beginning of the year between, and maybe we did, and I'm just forgetting, Paul, that.
Because remote students could always participate. We had talked about it. They
Yeah, I
can't
thought-
show up to school, right?
Yeah, I wasn't sure we allowed that. Yeah.
Steven's shaking his head.
Kelly's saying
I thought
no.
we didn't allow it.
I thought we didn't allow it either.
That's why I wanted to clarify that,
Yep.
that we had focused solely on if we went remote, the kids who are in school could not participate. We would not have athletics.
They
Let's do the motion,
participate in
so-
our remote activities.
Right.
Let's do the
So-
motion so
But
it's
not in
covered
person.
either way.
Yeah.
Who's got it?
So I'll move that we allow students in a remote model to participate in athletics
In person.
and other activities.
Second.
All in favor? Erin?
Aye.
Kathy?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Aye. For me, that passes.
And
Thank
you.
Okay, Jim, and then there's a couple of days.
Yeah, the calendar, we're not looking to change. We're not changing the calendar itself. It was having those dates become, so we can announce it to families asynchronous. So our teachers, it's all, those Wednesdays are still not in person anyway at this point. We want to make sure our faculty and staff have those days to prepare. It's the week before kids come in. And it made good sense. It's on the Wednesday, which is an asynchronous day for the most part anyway. It
Any
doesn't-
objection to that, committee members?
No, I just would have thought that would have been Jim's discretion on a
Yeah,
day-to-day
no, I
basis.
wasn't looking for a vote, Mark. I was just,
Okay.
I was trying to keep you attuned to it and make it
Yep.
announced. So I can publicly announce that tomorrow. That's all.
Okay. All right,
Oh.
MCAS bill.
Sorry, Lori, just while we're talking about the calendar,
Yes.
did we have a final one that we voted on for 21-22 back in November? I saw a draft that Karen had sent.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, we have. Yeah. But we got calendar coming up if you want to hold on to that.
okay.
Yep.
I'll hold it. Thank you.
Who's discussing the MCAS bill?
Marcus.
I think that's me. So, as you guys know, I'm on the MASC Board of Directors. And one of the things I'm doing is participating in the legislative committee, which is looking at different legislative actions that are appropriate to support schools. And one of the things that Jim had already alluded to it a little bit is the MCAS, and that there's a bill floating around, which was in our materials. It's House Bill 1448 that would basically require, it would change the law so we don't have to issue the MCAS. Now, to be clear, as I think Jim also alluded to, you need a waiver from the federal government for that to fly. But right now, this is more about trying to express the concern about spending time on the MCAS. There are multiple considerations. One being simply, we're getting this push to get kids back in school. That's what we just voted for. And then the state's going to say, oh, well, don't spend that time on learning, teaching, spend that time on testing. I think that's just short-sighted in my view, in particular this year. And I don't, a lot of people debate sort of whether the MCAS is a good idea or bad idea. I'm not really trying to speak to that, but really just about this year. I think the other issue is that, the argument in terms of doing the MCAS this year from the state has been, it's going to help figure out where we've had learning loss. The reality is we don't get MCAS results till November, October, something like that. Which, by which point our staff have already figured it all out and are working with kids to close learning gaps. We're obviously going to be doing some sort of program this summer internally. So I won't go on at length about it, but there is a bill, and what I was hoping to do is have the committee vote to support that and ask Lori to pen a letter to our representatives, Karen Spilka and Jack Lewis, asking that they support the bill. And maybe we get lucky and the federal government grants a waiver on it. I don't know, but this is sort of the first step in that process.
Anybody have any objection to that or any comments? Who wants the MCAS this year?
Yeah, no, I don't object to that at all. I think that's great.
Thank you for bringing that forward, Mark. I mean, I fully support that.
Do you want a motion, Lori, or are you good with consensus?
Why don't we take a motion just so there's a record?
So I'll move that the committee authorize the chair to send a letter to our Senate and House representatives supporting the House Bill 1448.
Second, do we have one?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, Kathy?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Aaron?
Definite aye.
You can't vote twice, Aaron.
I think we all feel the same about that one, that's for sure.
Hey, Lori, I think we skipped over the student activities.
We did, sorry.
It's all right. I just want to make sure we get it.
Yeah, let's do that now.
She was too juiced about MCAS.
Right?
Couldn't wait to vote no on that. Or yes. Who's got, is that you, Jim? Do you have information about
Yeah,
that?
these are just the activity account reconciliations through December of 2020, and they just need your approval. Chris has vetted them, and the principals have signed off on them as well. So.
Do we have a motion to accept those student activities bank reconciliations from between October and December 2020?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, Paul?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Kathy?
Aye.
Aye for me, thank you. All right, let's make sure I go in order here. Calendar of recognized holidays.
Now we're waiting for Neerman. So, Lori, do you just want to
Yeah,
introduce why it's on the calendar?
yes. So we received a letter from Neerman explaining to us what the holiday Eid is all about and whether or not we would be willing to add it to the calendar. And the calendar for this year is already set, but we certainly thought it was an opportunity to open a discussion about first hearing a little bit more about the holiday and its importance, but also giving the committee a chance to decide whether or not we want to look into doing some further work on what else we need to be recognizing on our calendar, if anything, or not. So Neerman, I'll ask you to just explain a little bit more about what you wrote to me.
Yes. So in my email that I sent to both you and Superintendent Adams, I wrote, if you are not aware, I'm a hijabi Muslim girl, and every year in the 9th month of the Islamic calendar that follows the moon, there's a month called Ramadan. In this month, the Muslim community fasts from sunrise to sunset every day. And after 30 days, there's Eid al-Fitr, which is like how Christians, Catholics, and Protestants fast for Lent and then celebrate Easter. This is one of the only 2 holidays Muslims get a year. And I wanted to discuss with you making the first day of Eid after Ramadan off like any other religious holiday. Every year, we take Christmas, Good Friday, and Easter off as religious holidays. For Judaism, we take Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and you have acknowledged Diwali, so why not Eid? If you have all these other religious holidays off, then why not have an Islamic holiday off too? This country was founded on the belief of equality, so why not have equality? I know other school districts in Massachusetts, like Cambridge, and in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and Maryland, have recognized Eid al-Fitr as a holiday every year. I think the school calendar should be inclusive in representing diverse cultures of our town. This year, Ramadan is Tuesday, April 13th, 2021, and Eid al-Fitr is Thursday, May 13th, 2021. I believe that you should make Eid al-Fitr off, and I know others agree with me. And my friends and I have prepared a presentation, but I'm not sure if I can screen share or not, if I'm allowed to do that.
Jim?
Jim can make you a co-host and let you do it.
In about 5 seconds.
Thank you.
Be all set now.
Okay. So I wanted to start off with explaining a little bit more about the holiday. So Eid al-Fitr is one of the 2 Islamic holidays of the calendar every year. It rounds off the month of Ramadan, which Muslims observe to acknowledge Allah's revelations of the Quran to Prophet Muhammad. Muslims gather their friends and family to show gratitude towards Allah in following the previous month of reflection. This holiday serves as a great reminder for Muslims to be grateful for what they have and to share with those who are maybe less fortunate. And gifting is a big part of the celebration as well. Children receive ideas, which are offerings in money bags, sweet treats such as cookies and dates. These are exchanged amongst loved ones, neighbors, colleagues, friends, and even strangers. In the high school and across the Ashland community, we started a petition that went around asking people how they would feel if this holiday was off. In the Ashland community, 536 people signed agreeing that this holiday should be off, exceeding the goal amount. And we had one off for the general public, which 104 people signed. This made the final total being 640. As you can see, people agree that it's time for equality to be in our school community. In my survey, I also asked people if they wanted to say a comment or a few words on what they think. And I asked some people if I was allowed to use their names. So first off, Albisha Syed said, "As a Muslim, I find it very difficult every year to miss one day of the biggest holidays for me that my family celebrate. Having to catch up the next day gets very stressful, and I feel like when other religious holidays get off school, I should too." And then Vinish Harris said, "I think that all people should recognize all holidays and religions and adjust accordingly." A student in my grade named Paige Hess said, "It's a holiday, and I think it would be respectful to people who celebrate it to have a day off from school. I don't see why this shouldn't happen. Students get days off for Christmas/Jewish holidays and do not seem to take into consideration other people who celebrate and find other holidays important for their religions." And I had someone say other comments like, "I feel that it's a basic human right to celebrate one holiday. It's Islamophobic that this petition isn't active in the first place. Ramadan is a Muslim holiday in the same way as Christmas being a Christian holiday. Every year, for as long as I can remember, we are universally given Christmas Day off, even days prior and post to celebrate. I find it extremely distressful that one day can't be taken off for a Muslim community in Ashland to celebrate and spend time with their loved ones in a day that means a lot to them. Or, in Islam is the biggest holiday, the biggest religion on the planet, and we need to recognize this. We all get other holidays off, but Muslims aren't recognized. This would be good for Muslim students so they can spend time with their families, but also good for other students so they can respect and learn about other religions. And it's in a religious month for us Muslims, like Christmas is for Christians. Getting a day off would not only make us Muslims feel appreciated, but also help educate others in Eid al-Fitr. And if the Ashland Public Schools want to confirm its 5 core values, acknowledge Eid al-Fitr as a holiday would definitely show the committee's respect to all within the community. I feel like all religions should be able to take time off when they need to for a holiday without being marked up. We already get other holidays off for different religions, so why not have Eid off? And supporting Muslim students would give them time to practice a religion, and it can be an important and big step forward. We should enable the celebration of religion. And the last comment that someone wrote was, "It is best to be inclusive of all religion and ethnicities. I believe that this is a progressive petition and deserves recognition. So as you can see, this holiday would be respectful and would be the right thing to do, not just for the Muslim community, but to other religions as well. It will help teach others about equality, educate others on different religions, and take a step forward into what our schools should look like. I thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Neerman. I really appreciate all the effort you put into that presentation. And I'm going to open it up to the other committee members if they have anything they want to ask you specifically about it. But typically, we will probably talk about this at our summer retreat. I know that when we recently added Diwali, there was a process that took some time, and we were very happy to add it. And I think now it's just a matter of looking at the big picture and making sure that we're addressing all of the concerns. And I don't know if Mr. Adams has any thoughts about or plans, but I think that that would probably come out of a discussion that we would not have at a retreat. But I certainly would open it up to any committee members that want to know more now.
I really appreciate the presentation, and I think it's an absolutely valid request. I agree with you, Lori. I think it's, it's important for us to be inclusive. That's something we talk about. It's a part of our mission and vision for our district. And there's really no reason not to be treating people of all religions the same way. But I do think it obviously has impact in other ways that we do have to sort through. The right course is the one you've suggested, which is let's talk about it as a summer retreat topic to look at impact on schedule. And I think it's an opportunity for us to say, we should take a step back and figure out whether there are other holidays of other religions that are not being acknowledged in an appropriate manner, and look at the issue holistically, and ideally before we start next year.
Yeah, I concur with what both of you said. I really appreciate you coming, and the email was great. And Jim and I talk about this all the time. We love when students advocate. You're eloquent. Your letter was great, and hopefully we can schedule it and maybe invite you to the retreat when we want to talk about this and include you in that, and any other students that want to discuss it with us, because I think it's important. But to Mark's point as well, there's a lot of things to consider when we're talking about the calendar and how it impacts the overall year and the schedule, how it impacts all families. That not everybody rejoices at having a day off, right? There's a lot of families that if they're not celebrating and they don't have other arrangements, they're scrambling. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't look to see how we can appropriately recognize this and any other thing we might be overlooking right now, and not only how we acknowledge it on a calendar, but potentially in curriculum or however we can do it to as you put to be able to acknowledge and celebrate and allow for all families to celebrate the religious observations they have. So thank you very much for both your letter and coming tonight. So,
and just as a frame of reference, I'll go back in time to when we started having the discussion about Diwali and having that put on our calendar and recognizing it as days off within the total calendar for the school year. It took us about 2 years to eventually move it forward. So then families had the idea, we're passing this, we're adding it to our calendar, be prepared in year X that this is occurring. So just as a frame of reference, that was the process we took last time. We did have a conversation about having it added to the calendar because it impacts the days off and the overall school length of the school year.
So we will definitely be in touch. Does anybody else have anything they want to add?
No, I just thought maybe, Neerman, could you, for those of us that don't know, or some people watching, you're a high school student, and
Yes.
what grade are you?
I'm a senior in high school.
You're a senior. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for coming tonight and your presentation and your email.
Yeah, I assure you that what you raised is really important to all of us. And it's just a matter of sitting it down and coordinating the schedule and making sure that we are at the same time meeting the needs of anybody else who might want to bring that request to us. But we appreciate you being here and sharing with us. All right, and if there's nothing else, I'll move to the next.
Erin had, moved her, she was talking about the calendar at the last section. I didn't want to forget.
Yeah.
I put her on pause because I knew we were going.
Oh, Erin Williams.
Conversation. So
Thank you. Of course, yes.
It's just Erin, you know.
Well, sometimes when you say Erin, there's a couple Erins. Took me a minute.
I'm not the most important one. Erin Paolini is the most important one because of the great minutes she takes. So my question is, I was looking at the beginning of the school year, and obviously we have a very strong feeling we're going back. We probably don't have any sense of what delays there might be at the beginning of the school year, but that first week, it's like 3 or 4 days, then 5 days off, then 2 or 3 days, and then you start. I was wondering, because those 4 days leading up to a 5, and it's just the way I think Rosh Hashanah falls.
Yep.
It's the day after Labor Day. It makes sense to just, like, are we going to have the option next year for a snow day to have remote snow days so that we don't have to worry about that and we can start the school year later? It just seems so choppy and kind of a waste.
So there are a couple of things at play, Erin, on that. I'm just trying to pull up the calendar for next year on my, if I have it. There are a couple of things at play. I do not anticipate remote days being allowed next year. The commissioner has made that pretty clear for snow days. He does not, again, he doesn't anticipate it. Yes, the choppiness occurs because you have to remember we actually worked with the union on the calendar, their start dates, because the way it originally is designed, I'm trying to get this right, so I'm pulling it up, that they come in, typically it would be Monday, Tuesday for professional development. Students come Wednesday, Thursday. By contract, they have the Friday off before Labor Day. So we felt as though trying to get an opportunity for some professional development in and getting kids in. Otherwise, we're not getting them in until well after Labor Day. So we started with the 30th, and at least this way they're getting 4 days in. We typically start the week before anyway, Labor Day.
Yeah, it's choppy, but if we start pushing it back anymore, we're well into, we're already, the 180th day is June 16th, right?
Right.
And then it's 20, and because of now Juneteenth, it's actually the 185th day would be the 24th, right? So we're really getting late into June if we really start pushing that. But see your point though, right?
No, absolutely, and that's why I worked with them for the 26th and 27th to be our 2 professional days. So everyone comes back on that Monday. Typically, they wouldn't come back in until Wednesday. So we're getting 4 days of school in. Otherwise, we wouldn't. So.
Okay.
But yeah, because of Rosh Hashanah, the way it falls.
It's definitely a crappy way to start, right? You want to have a couple days, then a little break, but not a huge break, right?
And then a slightly selfish question, but it also goes back to some of what you were talking about earlier about the social emotional health of the kids coming back. Will there be opportunities maybe during the PD time in the week before for the kids that have been homeschooled for the year to get more acclimated with their, like, the building and whatnot, as other kids would have had step up day, or they're like, kids going to be included in step up day if they're homeschooled? How will that all work?
Next year, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll talk about that. But yeah, we've traditionally done that. Yeah.
Any other questions, Erin? Or yeah, I know. But good call. It's just is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm sure if we rolled the dice and said, yeah, we probably won't have very many snow days, like we didn't have a lot.
Oh, it'll be that year, like
yeah, and we'd be July 4th before we're out, right? So
yeah. well, we can't go past June 30th, but yeah. Okay. And I didn't want to say, like, I didn't want to hold on the topic because obviously if you wait till the summer, it becomes a moot point, but thank you.
Yeah, no, it's the right time to have that conversation. So
Yeah, I mean, I would love to examine ways. I think, I think a lot of families actually this year with the delay till after Labor Day really got to enjoy one more week. I know it's hard because usually camps are wrapped up till then, and like the argument they made with Neerman, like not all people like time off, but it's something for us to consider in the future. I know we've all for years tossed around the idea of like shifting the half days and whatnot. So just there were some good things about COVID that could continue for some families.
all right, moving on. Mike, do you have a report this evening?
I just figured I'd fill you in very quickly. We're in the process of trying to plan our summer Title I camp. Actually, we won't even call it camp this year. It's more of a summer academic programming. And I was very excited to know that we've got at least 21 educators right now who are interested in doing that. So we're going to be pushing forward to get a nice rigorous program for our students right now in K-8, so we can help to mitigate some of the learning loss that's happened for many of our students over the course of the last year and a half, going on since March of 2020, obviously. So we're excited about that. And we're obviously going to try to get something going at the high school as well. But we've got 21 folks who are willing. So we're happy about that.
Excellent. That's great to hear. Does anybody have any questions about that? Or anything else you want to share, Mike?
Nope, I'm good for now. And I'll be sharing more with you about that program as we get more into the planning stages. But I just wanted to give you that introductory at this point.
Awesome. Thank you. And then Kathy, did you have any warrant approvals to share? You're muted. Kathy, did you know that you're muted? Still muted.
There you go.
There you are.
Okay, sorry, it wouldn't go back.
Oh, now we lost you. All right, what do we have next? And then maybe we can come back to Kathy when she reappears. Who's got anything on the minutes of February 18? Anybody have any changes or?
Well, Kathy's typically the minute hawk.
She's the minute queen. But I did read them and I don't have anything.
You want to do gifts while we're waiting for Kathy to come back in?
Let me see
if there are any.
Yeah, sure. Are there gifts and donations, Jim?
Yeah, there are two. Planet Aid, $214.20, and another Planet Aid, $136.85 for a total of $351.05.
We have a motion to accept the gifts and donations.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor, Mark?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Aaron? And an aye for me. Any sign of Kathy?
Actually, not yet, but there was one thing we missed, and thank God Ms. Johnson's always watching, and she just texted me. She's on. As part of the student activity account, there was another part of the background below. It says, in addition, Mr. Matthews asking to close the student activities account for the Mendez Art Club. The club has been inactive since 2017 of October. The account balance of $108.29 would be transferred to the student activities principal fund at Mendez.
Jim, I don't see that on the agenda. I mean, is it a part of the reconciliation?
Yeah, it was part of the reconciliation. You'd be moving it out of the bank, those accounts.
None of the other ones are specified either, Mark. It's just part of the motion.
It was in there. I just didn't.
So I guess it's that big a deal. I just want to make sure we're not addressing something that's not covered by the agenda topic. If it's, if I guess my thought is if it was.
It's part of the student, right?
Right, if we already moved to approve the reconciliations, do we get that?
Yeah, yeah, she just had it separated out on.
You wanted to clarify the motion with those specific words?
So, I mean, I guess why don't I try this? Move to clarify the prior motion as it related to student activities reconciliations to include the closure of the account for the Mendez Art Club.
Good.
All in favor, Paul?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
And aye for me. Kathy's battery died and she's trying to get back in, but what happens if she's not here to read the warrant approvals? Is that something that can be addressed at the next meeting or?
Yeah, it's just her reporting on it. So she just reported on the next one that she's at.
Okay, well, then I think we can move ahead and do the minutes. And if she pops back in, then that would be great and helpful. But if not, there is a quorum and we can vote them if everybody had a chance to look at them. Or does anybody have anything for February 18th?
Okay.
Does anyone have a motion to accept the minutes of
Kathy's-
February 18th?
Kathy's
You're
back.
back, Kathy. We cannot do minutes without you.
I am so sorry.
That's okay. Start with the
my
warrant.
battery before. I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna lose my battery, and then I did. Sorry.
No problem. You're back. So warrant.
I was
first.
good with all the minutes, if anybody was wondering.
Yes, we were.
If that helps.
But
All
start
right.
with the warrant, please.
I'm sorry. I
You gotta find it.
I gotta find it. Sorry. Oh my gosh.
So why don't we do the minutes while she's finding it then?
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so nobody
me
had
just-
any changes for February 18th, Kathy. I don't know if you do, but we were just about to approve them.
No, I don't have any changes.
Okay, and then did somebody move to approve February 18th?
I move to approve the minutes of February 18th,
We'll take a
2021 as
second.
presented.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor? Aaron?
Aye.
Kathy?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Aye. For me, February 26th on those minutes. Anybody?
Nothing. Nope, they looked good.
They always look so good, thanks to Aaron.
Yeah, they do. Aaron Palini does a nice job.
Who's got the motion?
Move to approve the minutes of February 26th, 2021 as presented.
Second.
All in favor? Kathy?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Thank you. Aye for me. And March 4th, 2021. Anybody?
Oh, those looked good too.
Move to approve the minutes of March 4, 2021 as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor? Kathy?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
And aye for me. And have you been able to locate those warrant approvals, Kathy?
Yes, I have them right here. Thanks.
Excellent.
Okay. Between March 5th, 2021 and March 18th, 2021, I, Kathleen Bates, authorized by my signature payables in the amount of $495,638.59. This includes general fund expenses of $445,498.14, revolving expenses of $48,041.14, and grant expenses of $2,099.31. I also signed off on $1,086,950.57 of payroll.
Thank you, Kathy.
You're welcome. Sorry about the glitch there.
I think we've probably all been there. And next up, anybody, I was just going to say, Paul, what's your update? Does anybody have any member updates?
I'll let somebody else go first.
I'll just make a quick announcement from the MASC. Board spent a lot of time at our meeting a week ago, talking about what they're going to do for the conference in the fall. So as everybody remembers, that conference basically didn't happen in this fall. It was a short remote program. Right now, they are aiming to do some sort of hybrid program, same time, same location, and they're putting that kind of program together. So for those people who are going to potentially feel comfortable going to a conference, this one is being planned. There is, always a possibility with things changing with COVID, as we know, but right now the plan is to have a conference in November to go to.
Thanks, Mark. Anybody else?
So let's give an update on the things happening with the Mendez project. So since our last meeting, we on the 8th, we had started the public hearing for the ANRAD application to CONCOM. Just for those not aware, and the ANRAD application is just, it's the process by which the CONCOM and our wetland scientists, and basically the wetlands are delineated for the project and boundaries set. So it's a process where the project and the CONCOM come to agreement on where the delineations are. So it's a routine thing that happened on the 8th. And then we had a building committee on the 9th, and then a walkthrough on the site with CONCOM on the 13th. Today was the deadline for our construction managers to submit their proposals, are shortlisted. So we had the 4 proposals that came in today, and the CM selection subcommittee will be looking at those, and we are going to be doing interviews on March 30th and March 31st with those CMs, and then making a recommendation to the building committee on our April 6th meeting. So I think that's about it.
Could you tell us who are the 4 again, Paul? Could you tell us?
We have Consigli, Fontaine, Shamit, and Skanska. So we had 11 submit for the RFQ, which is a lot. We had a lot of great firms. There's a lot of work by the team, and it was hard, but a good kind of hard, because we had a lot of great firms to choose from. So more to come on that later this month.
Oh, that's great.
Anybody else? Okay, I think that's it.
No
Who's
meeting
got a
tomorrow.
motion?
And no meeting's fine. Would you like a motion to adjourn?
I would love one.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, Kathy?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
And I for me. Thank you again, everybody, for all you do. Have a great night. Have a great
Thanks
weekend.
everyone for being here.
See you next time.
Thank you.
See you
Bye.
later.
Good night.
Bye-bye.